black cats got Dave N. The white hats, they got Doug. The Google search engine.
Jim and Ann Show.
The Jim and Ann Show.
Jim and Ann Show.
Ann Smarty, the community manager at Internet Marketing Ninjas.
And Jim Boykin, the CEO, the one and only of Internet Marketing Ninjas.
There can be only one CEO.
Yes.
Okay, so today what were we going to talk about again?
Title tags.
Title tags. Title tags are awesome. In fact, they're so awesome, they're one of the most important on-page elements to your SEO. Often people don't realize how important they are, but title tags
on
are
many levels
important.
to rank, to attract click-through, to attract backlinks, to attract social media shares, all sorts of goals, all in one title tag.
Yeah, and you only get like so many letters that they're going to show you. Actually, I think it's not even characters, it's pixels. How many pixels of characters? I forget the number. It was like 72 roughly, or 76 letters, something like that.
Yeah, characters. I forgot the number of.
And so you can have a title tag that's much longer. In fact, a lot of people think it's bad to have your title tag is 80 characters, that's too long.
I've seen the tools, the SEO tools, that do the on-page analysis, and they your title tag is 85, it's too long.
Like danger. No, your title tag, I don't want to say it can't be too long, but, I think anything up to 100 letters is okay. I guess one of the things you have to realize is that at some point Google's going to cut it off. And so, I forget the exact number of characters. There's even title tag checker tools.
75 or something.
We should probably put a link to a title tag checker tool to show how Google displays it, where you can type in something. But I totally do not believe that Google penalizes if you have longer in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I'm always happy with knowing what Google is going to show and knowing what they're not going to show. And utilizing what they're not going to show by putting in other things as well after there, like knowing how I want the beginning of a 10, but knowing here's some words that are really valuable to me. I know they're not going to show, but I still want them in that title tag because the title tags are really important in the eyes of Google. So that's part of the science, is knowing what's going to show and what's not going to show, and deciding what you're going to put after you don't want to show.
So first thing, you put your important keywords there, but just don't list them using the commas.
Yeah, your most important keywords should be in there.
Yeah, probably start with the most important one. At least make it the beginning of the title tag. It will be bold when people search, which is very good to attract an eye and click through. So use it at the beginning to make sure Google uses it in the search results.
You definitely want to have your most valuable phrases in there, but I used to have an old rule that I didn't want any phrase repeated more than 1.5 times. So let's say, our title tag, I'm not sure what it is today, but if it was a full service internet marketing and social media marketing company or something like that, you notice that I didn't say full service internet, and internet marketing being kind of one of the biggest phrases. That I don't repeat that big phrase twice. I might repeat half of one of the words in my big phrase, but I'm worried about over-optimizing, because you can over-optimize your title tag, and if you just keep repeating words over and over again, Google looks at it and says, this just looks like keyword stuffing. And so often we used to recommend start out with a capital letter, often even end with a period. Often, I think way back in time, there was some study where people used to recommend that the second and third word should be the most important, that people don't read the first word of a sentence. And so we would put something like, the in front, or we'd put one word in and then keyword, and then something, half a keyword with another word that's part of the other phrase. So I guess it's, ideally you want your keywords together. Your second best is to have them apart. Like if I'm, targeting, it's better to have them together, but better at least if all the words are there. Maybe they're not together, but, they're at least in that title tag, and no patterns. I guess that's where, if you've got 1,000 products, the title tags can't, well, I shouldn't say they can't be patterned, but it's probably better if they don't set patterns. Title tags are probably going to count more if they're all unique and in a sense done by hand, rather than, alright, always put the product name first, followed by the whatever, like next part, yeah, followed by the brand name or whatever. Like Google just sees all this as like it's just a big pattern. You're just replacing the one word in all of your title tags. And so when they look at the title tag, it's not quite as unique. It looks like a machine-generated page, and often better answers are given on non-machine generated pages. So just things to keep in mind. Try not to set patterns if possible. It's not always possible when you have a million-page website. Yeah. But that's where we're trying to do as many patterns and shake-ups of patterns as possible, because if they see that like the word discount is in 90% of your title tags, that may not have the same weight as if it was unique as well.
Yes. And so keywords in the title tag, because they help you rank. That's the most prominent place for search engine. They look there, they understand what the page is about and whether they need to rank. It's very seldom when you see a page rank high in Google when there is no keyword in the title of that page. It's a very powerful signal. Still powerful. It used to be even more powerful. It's still very, very important thing to do. What else that title does is that it appears in search results and it affects your click-through, which is also a Google signal. So it's all connected. It's a visual circle. So it's not if you just do the comma separated keywords in your title, you might not attract any clicks. One thing to keep in mind is that nowadays Google changes titles. Sometimes they show absolutely different version of your title in search results, and I don't think that we still caught the pattern why they're doing this. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. I've seen titles that I would say serve better search result than that one they changed it to. Sometimes they just remove all the keywords and keep the brand name in the title. That happens, but most of the time your title tag is going to show up in search results.
Yeah.
And affect the click-through.
There's a certain percent of the time when you may have your title tag super optimized. When you look in Google, that's not what they're showing. Can't really control that. Most of the time, though, what Google is going to show in the search results is that title, which, as Ann said, that's going to affect your click-through rate. So if your title is something boring and it's just a string of keyword phrases separated by commas, which I wouldn't do, that kind of just tells Google, keyword phrase, comma, keyword phrase, comma, keyword phrase, and they want stuff that's natural. They don't want stuff that looks like SEO, and SEO is keyword stuffing often, and they don't like that. But the click-through is a really, really, it's a strong signal. People can debate on how strong it is, but it's a strong signal. In other words, there's been different studies that have come out, but if we say, and Google has their own information based on, their actual searches, but if you say that on average, and someone does a search in Google, the result at number 1 gets, say, 30% of all clicks of people that run that search. And maybe the guy at number 2 gets roughly about 12% of all the clicks. And then the guy at number 3 is getting about 9% of all clicks. And it kind of goes down from there. And I think it's like 11% of the people go to page 2. Probably even less than that now. These studies are a few years old. But let's say you're ranked number 3, and in theory your click-through rate should be like 12%. But let's say that your click-through rate is at 25%, and let's say if the guy who's number 2 has a click-through rate of 8%, well, Google's going to be like, well, it seems like a lot more people are clicking on that guy at number 3. It must be a lot more relevant. They're going to flip the results around, and so click-through rate is a big factor. Of course, you have to serve the user once they get to the website. That's going to be the next step. But if you can get more people going to your website, you have a better chance of, if your website is great, of showing those great signals to Google. And then looking at, so click-through rate is really important. And what we used to do is, a lot of times we'd look at, if we type in some of the phrases that clients targeting, and we look at the paid ads across the top and going down the side, and I usually pay special attention to those going across the top. The people whose ads going across the top are
high quality score.
Yeah, either that or they're paying a ton of money. So they're either paying a ton of money or they're not paying a ton, and their quality score is high because they're getting a lot of clicks. So you pay a little bit special attention to those people, and then look at the others, and then if you're also doing some pay-per-click, look at your ads that you're creating that have the highest click-through percentage. And so in Google Ads, you only get to use a small, I forget the number of words or characters, like 45 or something.
Yeah.
It's smaller. And then you get a little description. And I look at both. So we've done things where, I remember we had one guy that sells a specific product. And his title tags, years ago, I'd still work with a client for years. His title tag was like keyword phrase 1, pipe, keyword phrase 2, pipe, keyword phrase 3. And did incredibly well with that. For all 3 of those phrases, he did great for years. And he started slipping in rankings for some of those phrases. And one of the changes that we did was we changed the title tag to, I think it was like 40 to 70% off on this and this and this. And so people looking through the results were like, whoa, this one has 40 to 70% off. And his click-through rates went up, and he went up. But at the very least, like it did 2 nice bonuses of his click-through rates went a lot higher because that was much more enticing for people to click on. And so, it's really important to have the phrases in your title tag that you're targeting. But the other thing you got to also balance is, how do I get more clicks? If I say free or on sale or huge inventory, or what are words that other people in paid ads are using, or what are you using in your paid ads? Which ones are getting the most clicks? But if your click-through rate is higher than normal for your position for those search phrases that people are doing, it's like you get free signals. You move up in the rankings.
Yeah, that's and you get traffic.
Yeah, and more traffic,
which is a nice benefit.
It's a
bonus.
Win-win. It's not. Everyone out there should probably go through your top 100 most valuable pages and go in and do those title tags by hand. Don't do patterns in them. Put in other words. Normally when we're doing projects like this, we kind of have, here's a list of phrases someone's targeting, and here's these other single words that are good to have. Like, what are your purple cows? Is it, open 24 hours a day, or biggest selection ever, or huge inventory, or, big sale this week only. You don't need to keep it there for a year. But like, throw in your purple cows and ideally come up with a lot of purple cows and scatter them throughout there. Put them at the beginning, put them at the end. It's kind of interesting when we were talking about title tags again, and the stuff that Google doesn't show. There's a lot of people that they want to put their brand name in the title tag. Just to kind of jump into that real quick.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. That's one of the oldest questions in SEO industry. Brand name or not in the title tag.
I would say the people that insist upon it, I'd put it at the end, like after those 75 characters. You want them in there, they're there. You really can't see them. But it's just, I guess if you are a big brand, like, I don't know, if you're LL Bean or something, like you're some kind of big brand where that like people are going to trust you in the search results, it's probably not a bad idea to put that brand in there if you're a good trusted brand. Otherwise, it's like you're taking up very valuable keyword space. That's my thought on it. You're using up really valuable keyword space. I wouldn't do it. Often. I love variety. I love variety in title tags. If you got 1,000 pages, sure, throw the brand in.
If you have a blog on your site, definitely put the brand name there. It will end up being tweeted if you have any social media activities. So it's not as.
I guess you'd ask yourself, do I think I'll get more clicks? Because you don't need the rankings. You're already going to rank for that. So I guess your whole question is, are more people apt to click on me because they're going to recognize the brand? If so, yeah, go ahead and put it in there. Experiment with that. I'd say if not, it's too valuable space put a brand name in there. Unless you're a big brand, then it's going to help.
Yep, I guess that's all for the title tags. I hope you enjoyed our tips, and you will do much better with your title tags now.
Yes. If you need some help, feel free to give us a
We are
call.
always here.
We
and use Jim and Ann hashtag to ask any questions.
Hashtag. Double peace.
See ya.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome when we just.
Can you do that again?
Yeah. I can do it as many times as you want him.